Hey everyone, so here's Wholesaling 101 at a very high level of how we make millions of dollars a year wholesaling real estate. So what is wholesaling? Wholesaling is contract arbitrage where you get a property under contract and you sell that contract to a end buyer on the back end. So the process is acquisitions, is where you actually are finding, locating a discounted or distressed property below market value, and there's all these marketing channels in order to achieve that. And then you lock it up, is where you get the property under contract with that seller, and then you sell on the back end, and that is dispositions, where you sell it to a buyer and you actually make money. So we're flipping contracts, not houses. There's no renovation needed, and there's no ownership required. So all you're doing is getting a property under contract and selling that contract for more money. So there's three ways to get paid, and so this is on the disposition front. There's the assignment, the novation, and the double close, and there's a bunch of different other strategies, but I would say this is 90% of what wholesaling entails. And so majority of the time it's the basic assignment where you're just assigning your rights to that contract and making a fee. So in the next slide, we'll show you what that looks like. You get the property under contract for $100,000. You sell that contract for $115,000 and you make that $15,000 difference. And so there's no ownership involved. You never bought the house. All you did was just get it under contract and sell that contract. And so that's what assignment is. Novation we'll dive into a little bit more here soon, but it's the same idea, but you can do it to a financed buyer. And so there's different strategies that I'll dive into on how to actually achieve that. But novation is a great way to actually make more money than the assignment and open up your buyer pool. And then double close is a way that you can buy and immediately resell for privacy or larger profit margins. So you can double close anything. We actually would buy the property and you'd sell it that same day, and we'll dive into on how to do that. So going back to the assignment, you're locking up the deal, find the buyer, assigning the contract, and you collect a fee. And why this works is and the reason why sellers are doing this in the first place is you are offering them speed and convenience. So there's a whole pitch and sales process on that. But they are willing to sell at a discount to not deal with that property anymore or just get out of their situation. And so they're in some pain situation, and there's all these marketing channels on how to identify these types of people that could be in these situations. And our job is just to provide them a solution. And so you close in X number of days, not months. There's minimal paperwork, and it's very scalable. And all of this is, you might be thinking of like, hey, how am I going to close in days? Your end buyer that you're bringing in is the person that's going to be closing in days. All you're doing is just finding that seller that is willing to sell, where a buyer would be open to closing that quickly. So the assignment, which I just dove into, this is how you make money. And like there's situations. Our biggest spread was we got the property under contract for like $880,000, and we sold it to an end buyer at like 1.1 million, and we made like $200,000. So that's obviously, or it actually could happen all the time depending on your business model. But this is what assignment looks like. Just these numbers could change. It's not just always 15,000. It could be a $5,000 fee. It could be anywhere to $1 million fee. Just depends on the type of asset class that you're dealing with and how much pain that person's in and the solution that you're doing to solve them. That's a big thing. You're getting paid in proportion to how much value you're providing the seller and the buyer on the back end. So you're never buying the house. You just simply transfer your right to purchase and collect the spread at closing. So novation's the same exact idea. You get a property under contract and you get one more or two more pieces of paperwork. And there's a lot of different models on this. So this is the model that we use in our business. Is we do the same process of we're finding somebody who, a seller that is looking to sell and they want that convenience, but they're willing to wait a little bit longer. So it's in good condition. The seller is open to listing the property, and you want to maximize profit over speed. And retail buyers with financing are planning full. So what that basically means is we're able to make, so assignments are usually with cash buyers. Novations are a way to get paid with financing. So if you try to sell a property that is in great condition, it's usually going to be somebody that is not going to be paying cash for that. And it's hard to actually get paid during the title process through the basic assignment. So you want to do a novation, and all you're doing there is just substituting your contract. So the idea is, and you might be asking yourself, why doesn't the seller just list the property? the big thing that we do, we call it our concierge program. And this is very high level. I don't want to get too deep into it, but the idea is they don't want to list it with somebody, even though we are listing the property. The reason why is because we give them a number that that we're confident in, and they just have the peace of mind of like, okay, $300,000 is the number that I'm going to get. And then also we say the property needs work, we would actually put money up front for that work. So this is more of an advanced strategy, but that is what we would do, where we help them move. And general real estate agents aren't doing that. They're not willing to put in the money to help sell the deal. Sometimes they are, like really good agents are. But as a model for us, we just doing that in scale, and we're able to do it a lot of times, and we're able to make very big fees on the back end because we are getting like an FHA buyer or just buyers with financing that are willing to pay a lot more. And so higher spread, bigger spread, because you're putting money into the deal. Double close is just another way to sell the property. You actually purchase the property from the seller, and then so it's A to B, and then you sell on the back end B to C. You immediately sell the property right on the back end. And there's usually transactional funding in order to accomplish this. So you actually don't need to use your money. You just bring somebody in. They're called transactional funders, and it's usually 1% of the purchase price. So it's just one more fee. So say for example, you got a property on a contract for $100,000. You're going to sell it for $200,000, and you're going to double close. And that's what I recommend doing, because if you were to do an assignment, they would actually see the amount that you're making. So when it's a certain amount, we have general rule in our company over like $30,000, we just double close because we don't want to risk it. But the idea is that transactional funder would come in and they would give you that $100,000 for that day, and they usually charge around like 1%, and that would be $1,000, right? So that would be a fee that you would include in the process, and then you would sell it, and then you would sell it to an end buyer, let's say for $200,000, and then you made $99,000 because it was that $1,000 fee. So this is one way, and this helps with a lot of the legislation that's going on in different states. Double close is a majority of the time a way to get around it if you can't assign it or novate it. There's just another strategy that we do. So match your strategy to the situation. So assignment though is best for cash buyers and quick closings. It's simple, fast, and low overhead. Ideal for most beginners. I would just stick with the assignment. And this is mainly for properties that are like falling down or very discounted. Novation's the same concept, but now you're doing it to you're selling this contract to buyers that are retail. So a lot more nuance because you're dealing with realtors, and there's a whole thing there. But once you understand the model, it does require a little bit more time, but you can deliver very high spreads because you got a buyer that's not bringing their money. They got a bank that's in the back end. And then a double close is the exact same idea, but it's best for larger spreads, deals requiring privacy, so you don't want to show the money you're making, or situations where the original contracts prohibit assignment, so depending on your state. So why is this 100% legal? You're protected by contract law. So it's the same idea of like, if I were to just buy a house in Texas right now, and then I'm like, oh, I don't want it, so I actually purchased it and I don't want it, and I sell it, that's just the process of flipping. So I flipped the house where I bought it for 100K, and I don't own the house, and so I sell it in the back end. And so this is the exact same concept for assignments and novations, but we're just actually not taking title to the house. We're just doing the same idea, but with a step before where we're doing it with a contract. So you're just selling your contract rights, and that's all you're doing. You're just transferring your rights to the contract. And you're a principal in the deal, so you're a party to the contract. You're not acting as an unlicensed agent because you're actually purchasing it yourself. And then, or at least you have the intent to. And then contracts are assignable, so you'd have this language in here. And I'm not an attorney, so do not hold me to any of these things. I'm just saying what we do in our business, and take it with massive grain of salt. So that's why it's legal though. It's just capitalism, helping people trying to sell the property, and then selling it to buyers at the back end. And why don't just buyers do this? You may ask yourself, like, why aren't just buyers doing this? Because it's a lot of time to do this marketing and sales to find these deals in the first place. We are deal creators and deal finders. There's a combo there, and that process we get paid for through a fee. So best markets, the big picture, and there'll be a lot more information in the course, but the best markets, the big picture is investor activity, where basically a lot of the big takeaway is where a lot of buyers are. You don't want to be finding a discounted deal and then no one wants to buy it on the back end. So you need your arbitraging and finding somebody that's willing to pay for it on the back end. So the idea is very populated areas, high income growth, where people are. That's the big takeaway. If you're going to find any place where people are, big cities like, let's just say, for example, like Tampa, Florida, Rochester, New York, like these big cities that are growing, and there's all these different platforms you can use to kind of identify these markets. But if it's a city, you're in a good spot in a big city, and that's what that looks like. And then you can actually, you have a whole process of how to do the different marketing channels, and that'll be in later videos. So that is wholesaling at a high level, and we'll see you in the next video. If this video helped at all, subscribe and drop a comment. Everything I just walked through and more lives inside our school community. Also, click the links below for additional resources and access. Thank you.